Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mainline Today's Healthy You Fit Fest. I'm Marie Edwards, and I'm the Associate Publisher with Mainline Today. Our Healthy You Fit Fest was born from 20 years of health and wellness feature stories published in Mainline Today. They include the best medical experts, cutting-edge innovations, and inspirational patient stories. We are thrilled to kick off 2022 with Jessica DeLuise with a fun and healthy cooking experience. Before we get started, I'd like to take just one moment to thank our sponsors. Tonight's event has been brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Independence Blue Cross serves nearly 3 million people in the area. They are the leading health insurance company in the Philadelphia region. Experience Chiropractic. Experience Chiropractic opened its doors in 2003, providing chiropractic care, massage therapy, and rehabilitation. Dr. Brandy Nemchenko is a chiropractor and former paramedic. And Mainline Nutrition. Mainline Nutrition is a successful team of registered dietitian nutritionists. Mainline Nutrition offers health coaching and nutrition education to clients. For more information about any of our sponsors, please visit mainlinetoday.com and click on our Healthy You Fit Fest pages. A little background about Jessica DeLuise. Jessica is a physician's assistant, culinary medicine specialist, and an Emmy award-winning TV chef. Her mission is to cut through the overwhelming food marketing gimmicks and share attainable, concise, and budget-friendly information that empowers all of you at home to make informed and nutritious food decisions. Many of you may be aware that food has tremendous impacts on various chronic diseases. Jessica shares those insights and relevant recipes on various media outlets throughout the US and on social platforms. You can follow Jessica on Instagram and TikTok for updates. And now, live from Jessica's studio kitchen. Welcome, Jessica.
So we have two 24-ounce jars or cans of tomatoes, 1 head of garlic, 2 onions, a couple carrots, 2 carrots, 3 carrots, depending on how sweet you want your sauce. We have Kalamata olives and capers for our sauce. Dried spices, a teaspoon of oregano, basil, parsley, red pepper flakes, whoops, but I forgot to take out, to taste, salt and pepper. And then we have for our chicken, we have some water or chicken broth, 2 large chicken breasts, 4 ounces of feta cheese, some frozen kale, a lemon, fresh parsley. Of course, we already have our head of garlic, salt and pepper. And then for our barley, we're using a lot of the same spices plus our dried barley. So if whenever you're cooking, just kind of pause, make sure you look up the recipe, just make sure that you have everything out in front of you. That's step number 1. When I'm cooking at home, this is my first thing I do is I get everything out in front of me. I just find that it makes me more efficient in the kitchen if I could just grab things or I know exactly where they are rather than searching for things and kind of scrambling the whole time. So the first thing we want to do for this recipe, which is we're going to do a warm barley salad with a feta and kale stuffed chicken breast with a spicy tomato marinara sauce, okay? So it's just comfort food, but of course we're hitting all those food groups, right? We have our veggie, some fat from the cheese, some protein from the chicken, and we're getting all the veggies as well in the marinara sauce, and then we're getting our carbohydrate from the barley. So we'll get our barley cooking first with, if you don't like barley, you could certainly do this with rice or pasta, of course, or quinoa. Barley is a whole grain. So what I love about that is you're getting lots of fiber, but if you've ever heard people talk about B vitamins, people go get their B vitamins, like their injection right in their tuchus, right? B vitamins are great. They help methylate, which is our body's way of removing some unwanted items from our body. They help with energy levels. So you're going to get a lot of that in whole grains, whether that be barley or oats or anything else. So we're going to get this into our pot first because it will take about an hour. And the back of the bag, if you're ever curious on how to cook grains, the back of the bag will always tell you the water to grain ratio. For barley specifically, I think that it says 1 cup to 3 cups. I actually do way more than that. I do about, in terms of water, I do about 1 cup of barley to about 6 cups of water. I actually already measured out. So I'm going to put this in here. So your barley should be well covered with the water and then some, about 2 to 3 times the amount of water to barley. And then this is done. You're going to put this on your burner on low. It's going to cook the entire time, and hopefully hopefully, at the end of our time together, it will be cooked through and nice and soft. So I'll pop that on. All right. And that's done. So we're gonna get things kind of going at the same time here, working simultaneously to get our recipe done. We're gonna start on our sauce. So while the barley cooks, we'll have our sauce simmering, and then we'll move over to the stuffing and our chicken breast, okay? So I'm using a large Dutch oven. You could use a stock pot, anything that you want. And we're gonna start by sauteing 2 onions. And the other thing that I really like too, when I'm making recipes at home, is if I know that I need onions for my chicken stuffing, and I need it for my sauce, and I need it for my barley, I'm gonna chop it all at the same time, right? It's just about working smarter, especially when you come home after a long day. You don't wanna be in the kitchen for hours, right? You wanna make sure that you get those balanced, nutritious meals on the table for your family. So we're gonna cut our onions. The best way to cut an onion so you get really beautiful dices is cutting it right down the middle, just like that, keeping that stem on. Can you all see how I did that? All right, and then you're gonna cut off the other end. So stem is still on. Peel back the skin. And what happens is when you keep this stem on, it's basically going to alleviate the sliding, right? You're not gonna get the sliding of all the slices. So stem is still on, my skin is off, which I'll just pop in the trash. You go into your onion 2 to 3 times, depending on how small you want those slices. So you see how I did that? Holding with 2 fingers, make sure your fingers are out of your knife line, slice down. Again, depending on how small you want those dices, and then you just rock your knife back and forth, just like that. And every single time, see how perfect those dices are? Every single time, whether you're making guacamole, sauce, it doesn't really matter. And you have the stem here, which is basically what's holding everything together. And then you get to toss it out, right? So we're gonna do 2 full onions like that. Cut off the end. Y'all are gonna see this 4 different times, right? And what's really neat about onions is, and my eyes are tearing, Bill's eyes are tearing. What's really neat about onions is, along with garlic, they are really fantastic for your immune system, which I know is on the forefront of everybody's minds these days, right? We might only need to do one just for purposes of tonight, which is on the forefront of everybody's minds these days, especially as we think about, obviously, you know, the big C word, right? Cold and flu, but even as we move into seasonal allergies, right? I mean, you know, our immune system, remember, moderates seasonal allergies. So it's so important to give ourselves all of those food items that are rich in antioxidants and that can actually support our immune system. So into my stock pot or Dutch oven, I have my diced onions. I'm gonna turn that on low heat. A trick, if you are thinking about adding oil to your recipes, get your pot hot, then add your oil, right? That oil is going to warm up and disperse over the bottom of your pot. You're gonna end up using less oil. I mean, I think fat is great. There's a place for fat in our diet, but you don't wanna use too much of anything, right? So thinking about your fat in your pot, if it's hot, it's gonna disperse and coat the bottom really nicely. And I'm using a tablespoon of olive oil here, which is really nice. Filippo Barrio, promise, did not sponsor this, but they have a reminder on the olive oil. This olive oil is good for cooking, okay? You wanna use extra virgin olive oil for eating raw. And that's because olive oil, not extra virgin, olive oil has a lower smoke point, excuse me, a higher smoke point than extra virgin. So, where's my little scooper? I don't know. I had a little scooper to help me get some things into, oh, here it is. So extra virgin olive oil has a lower smoke point, meaning that it's gonna burn. It's gonna burn at lower temperatures. And so you wanna make sure that you reserve that for your salad dressings or even marinating. So we get our onion in. At this point, we should start to hear a little bit of a sizzle as we put that into our pan. And what we'll do is we'll saute this a bit. We'll use a little bit for the stuffing of our chicken, a little bit for our barley, and a little bit for the sauce. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is we'll get our garlic going. Best way to open a head of garlic, just take out all your weekly frustrations right here on your cutting board. Give it a nice smash. And if you're one of those people that, you know, doesn't cook with garlic because maybe your fingers smell after you chop garlic, does anyone know, kind of show of hands or put it in the chat box? I want to test you. How to get the easiest way, you don't have to buy any special materials, easiest way to get rid of the garlic smell on your fingers. Anybody know? Carlene, I see your face, do you know? Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, so all you do is you rub your fingers on stainless steel. So stainless steel, so if you have a stainless steel knife, or even if your sink is stainless steel, rub your fingers on stainless steel. There's a chemical reaction that happens and that garlic smell is gone. Oh, we have a question. What's up?
Brandy says she doesn't have a Dutch oven. Can she use a skillet for this step?
Oh, that's a, yeah, of course. You can definitely use a skillet. Brandy, remember we're making our sauce though. So you do want something that's gonna have some volume, right? Because you're gonna be adding your tomatoes and everything in there. So you can use anything that you have as long as it has some sides, just to get the volume in there. So the amount of garlic is going to depend. I'm laughing because my husband right here is just so funny. The amount of garlic is going to depend on how garlicky you want your breath. I find in the world of wearing masks, you can get away with a lot more garlic these days. You know what I'm saying? Bill, another question.
They're saying you might be going a little too fast. Slow down just.
Totally. See, I knew that was going to happen. I can absolutely slow down. I already knew that was going to happen.
Especially the ones following along.
Yes, definitely. So why don't we take a pause here? I'm just mincing my garlic. I'll let everybody catch up. We'll give it a couple minutes. And I'll just peel a bit more garlic. How about that, as we kind of let everyone catch up? So if you are cooking at home with me, you would have already gotten your Dutch oven, stock pot, or skillet hot. You would have added your olive oil, diced your onions, and had them into the pot. And then now we're undicing the, mincing the garlic. All right, so maybe here's an opportunity to do some education. Olive oil. Olive oil, as we come up to Heart Health Awareness Month, olive oil is one of those oils that has a really strong and positive connection with heart health, right? So the #1 killer of men and women, it was, believe it or not, more than any type of cancer, more than COVID, right? And I say COVID because we're talking a lot about COVID and it's had a catastrophic impact on our community, but heart disease killed still more people per year. So as we get into Heart Awareness Month, it's important to incorporate things like olive oil, making sure that you're getting your blood pressure checked, touching base with your primary care, getting those cholesterol levels checked as well. And garlic, I mean, as we're talking about garlic is one of those other things that really has a great and tremendous impact on your heart health and in terms of vasodilation and helping with cardiac health. So, all right, I think we're gonna maybe move on to the next step. How do we feel about that? Brandy, thumbs up, thumbs down, let me know.
And they also asked if you could repeat the question I asked you.
I can absolutely repeat the question, no problem. So the first question from Brandy was, if she does not have a Dutch oven, what can she use instead? And the answer was anything with high sides, just so that you can make that tomato sauce. All right, so my onions, I smell them, right? I smell those onions cooking. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a mix. And really only about 4 or 5 minutes on these onions here, and until they start to get translucent. And then we're gonna take a little bit and put them in a bowl for our stuffing for the chicken, okay? All right, so let's put some of this garlic. So I did about, I mean, again, it's really up to you. I did about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. I'm putting half into a separate bowl for the stuffing of the chicken. So that will cook. You know, garlic is one of those things that burns very easily. So you wanna be careful. As soon as you burn garlic, my mom would say, that's it, you're done. You throw out your sauce. You cannot use it anymore, right? It has a really bitter, yucky taste when you burn it. So you wanna be very careful. So my onions are translucent. Let me take out a little bit of those. I'm gonna put it into a bowl. Bill, is this facing better, do we think? All right, good. Bill will tell me the truth.
Brandy says you're a little fast, but she just slow chop. So
Oh, okay, sorry, Brandy. All right, so we're gonna take about half of the onions out. So about 1 of those is gonna go into the stuffing for the chicken. The rest of that will stay in my stock pot. And I'm going to add the other half of my garlic. So you see how easy it is when you know what you're cooking, you have a plan, you chop the onions all at once, you chop the garlic all at once, right? Okay, and now we're gonna season. My nose is running, sorry, from those onions. Now we're gonna do a little bit of seasoning for our onions and let those continue to saute for our sauce. So just some seasonings. We're gonna do some salt. Again, thinking about, you know, everyone can appreciate this, I think, but if you have heart health, you can appreciate it more. Salt is one of those things that we really do want to limit in terms of dietary in our diet, right? So show of hands or in the chat box, we'll do another test. Does anyone know how much sodium for healthy individuals, right? For the most part, healthy individuals, we should be eating per day? What's our maximum if we have no cardiac disease? Anybody know? We'll give you a minute here. The answer is yes. Carol, thank you, Carol. Yes, yes, about exactly. You all are right. Good job. So it's about 2,000 to 2,300 milligrams. In terms of measurement, that is 1 teaspoon or one of those little to-go packets. All right, so it is not at all a lot of sodium. And why it's so important, by the way, as I chat about sodium, I'm gonna get out my carrots. That's the next thing we're chopping to put into our sauce. While we talk about sodium, the reason why that's so important is because there is a balance that sodium has in our body, okay? And it works with potassium and other electrolytes to balance fluid. When we have excess sodium, now this is very, very simplified, but when we have excess sodium, we are gonna retain extra fluid, right? And then what happens for our heart? That means our heart needs to pump it around our body, It works so hard. So a little bit of a simplified explanation there, but that is why if you go out to restaurants, right? Or you eat takeout, the next morning, what happens to your ankles? They're puffy, right? You get the indentation of your socks, your ring, maybe your wedding rings don't come off or your other rings don't come off. That's the role that sodium plays in terms of, cardiac health. All right, so for the sauce, I'm gonna shut off my heat here too, because I'm chatting too much. For the sauce, instead of adding sugar, which a lot of people do in their marinara sauce, I'm gonna add some carrots. So we're getting some nice sugar from the carrots. We're gonna get some beautiful caramelization on those carrots. You could add more than 2. I'm only gonna add 2 because that's what I like. But cooking is not like baking. Cooking is an opportunity to, really modify recipes to whatever your family likes, whatever you like. So, and if you like more of a not as sweet sauce, by all means, don't add the carrots, but I also think it's a nice opportunity to get more vegetables in, right? More fiber. All right, so for the carrots, we're doing 2 carrots right in with the onions and the garlic into our stock pot. And you could do a rough chop on these, a rough dice. They will start to soften in the sauce, and it really is all about what you enjoy eating. So if you don't mind the big chunks of carrots, no problem. If you like something a bit smaller, like I know that this fella right next to me, it's hard to get him to eat any sort of vegetable or anything with color. I do really, really small dices. So what I do is just cut it in half, make nice like carrot sticks, and then just run my my knife right through. Those who are cooking, how you doing? Just a check-in here. Make sure that we're all together. And then again, just like a rough chop, kind of rock your knife back and forth, get nice little pieces, and we'll pop that in. This is a baking palette. So bakers use this for dough. I actually use it on my cutting board to get all those veggies up. And that way less end up on my floor, which is important. So we're gonna put this into our pot with our onions and our garlic. And we've already added some salt and pepper here. We're gonna do that to taste. I did about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which any chef would tell you is probably way too little, but we can always salt later, right? You can never take away, you can always add. So we're gonna keep this going on some low heat. Our carrots, our onions, our garlic. Let me turn that back on. And let's add a little bit of our dried spices. So we have dried parsley and oregano, okay? And in terms of, adding salt or flavor to your recipes, remember dried spices are your friend. They're gonna add flavor, savoriness, added health benefit without adding any of the extra crap or flavorings that you might find in a store-bought sauce. So we have oregano and dried basil. And then we have some dried parsley. This is actually just from my garden last year. I just dried it in the oven. I laid it all out on a sheet pan for about, an hour or 2 on really low heat, 150 to 200 degrees. And you actually have your own very own dried herbs. So we'll put that in. I like to toast these a bit with my before I add my sauce, so they don't just boil, they actually toast and it changes that flavor. Give it a mix. And this sauce is just about done. You can see how easy this comes together. And if you ever run into my mother, this is kind of the base for her marinara sauce, she's from, Italian, from Italy. We never had this class. You never learned anything. I never gave you this recipe, okay? So just pretend. All right, let's get out our tomatoes. Now, whoever's cooking with me, or if you're watching this on replay, there's probably brown bits forming at the bottom of your Dutch oven. See if I can actually show you. You all see those brown bits there forming at the bottom? That is actually not burnt. That is flavor. So that's actually called the fond. And what happens is when you saute, as soon as you add liquid, so some people will deglaze their pan and pick up all that fond with wine or tomatoes. So as soon as you add liquid, you're going to pick that all up. That's going to add a really nice depth of flavor to your sauce. So I have tomatoes. These are, what are these? This is just a tomato puree. This is from Italy. Someone asked San Marzano. San Marzano is fantastic. They are like creme de la creme in terms of tomatoes, but any crushed tomatoes will be fine. So if you just have the cans at home, that's perfect. I tend to try to find things in glass if I can. And when they're on sale, I stock up because it's all about budget, right? So I'm gonna add both of these. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of water to each one of these jars just to get the little bits of tomato from the jar. We'll zhuzh it around and then we'll put that in our sauce too. So let me just turn around and grab some water from the sink.
San Marzano tomatoes?
Yeah, so Donna wants to know, are San Marzano tomatoes, I actually saw that. Are they good? Yes, San Marzano tomatoes are great. And they have a really nice sweet flavor, the San Marzano, so I think that would be a great option. Okay, so we put the cap on and then you get all the tomatoes from inside here. The interesting thing about tomatoes, they have this antioxidant called lycopene. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of lycopene, but lycopene has been associated with, as we talk about heart health, decreased stroke risk. And it also has been associated with sun protection. So I did a news segment over the summer about sun protection, and those who were given lycopene actually had less pinkening of their skin when they were out in the sun for a long time. So there's great benefit to cooking those tomatoes because you're gonna get more of that lycopene in the cooked tomatoes as compared to fresh ones, believe it or not. So that's pretty cool. All right, everybody. The only two things we have left to go in our sauce are the capers and the Kalamata olives. So that's gonna add a nice Mediterranean flair and some saltiness because remember, those are brined ingredients. We're gonna wait on that though. We're gonna let this sauce simmer. I'm gonna move it off to the side and we're gonna work on our chicken, which honestly, we are just chugging through this recipe and you can see how easy this all comes together. Maybe we'll take a pause here, let everyone catch up before we move on to the chicken and see how everyone's doing. Anybody, my nose is running again from those onions. Anybody have any questions right this moment? As I yeah.
Judy says, I've never seen the San Marzano in glass in the grocery store. Where do I find them?
Okay, Judy asked the San Marzano in glass. So there's a few places, where can you find them in the grocery store? There's a few places at the grocery store where you can find those, either with the sauces in the pasta section, or you can find them in there, there's the Nature's Promise section of Giant. I think we're all familiar with Giant. You can find it there. The other place that I have to say I've been shopping a lot recently because of the pandemic is Amazon. So what I can do is I have an Amazon storefront. It's I have the link in our chat box. I think if it's not already there, Bill will put it in there. And it's an Amazon storefront. I will add, Judy, those San Marzano tomatoes in glass jars. All I have to do is press and click and you can order them if you want. And full disclosure, I probably will make about 2.5 cents from that purchase. But trust me, that's not my motivation. It's just very, very convenient. Yes, another question.
Nancy, build the capers, add additional salt if they don't need. Are there any substitutes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so exactly. So what, if you noticed, who asked that question? Nancy. Okay, so Nancy asked, instead of the capers and the olives, because they're very salty, could we replace that with anything? I think that's a great question. Let me just get this on here. So you could add salt if you wanted to not use the briny ingredients. You could add the briny ingredients because they're very salty, or you could eliminate it totally. You don't have to add the olives or the capers because of that extra sodium. If you notice, I did not season. You know how we have to season every layer of a recipe? I didn't season the tomatoes yet. And I specifically didn't do that because I knew we were adding those Kalamata olives and the capers later, right? Which would be our salt component. But you could totally omit that if you wanted to, if you're watching your sodium intake. And I think that was a great question. Thank you for asking it. Yeah, any other questions right now?
Donna said maybe add mushrooms.
Yeah, you could totally add mushrooms. Any other veggies you want to add to your sauce? So Donna said you could add mushrooms, add veggies, add mushrooms, whatever you want to add to your sauce is full game, or fair game rather. I'm going to check on the barley, which is still going. It's not burning. So we're just going to let that hang out a little bit more. Okay. All right, so let's work on the stuffing for the chicken. What I want to do is get all of the components of this recipe ready and put together before I take out my chicken, because once I have raw chicken out, my cutting board's going to be dirty. All my utensils are going to be dirty. I'm going to have to wash my hands and put everything in the sink. So let's grab a bowl. Hopefully everyone is caught up. If you're not caught up, please let me know. And I can slow down or we can hang out a bit. I think we're running like really beautifully in terms of time. So just let me know. Anybody? Perfect. All right, good. So let's rock and roll. So the stuffing for the chicken. So this is going to be a feta and kale stuffed chicken. So I have frozen kale. You could swap in spinach if you don't prefer kale, that's totally fine. And it's frozen. Remember, as you know, we're in the winter now and we're in the Northeast. So fresh veggies are not so plentiful. And so swapping in frozen vegetables is a fantastic swap. And in terms of nutrition, they're just about the same as fresh. And, well, I'm boiling over with my barley. And they're much more cost effective. So don't scoff at frozen anything. It can be a really awesome addition to your diet and to your recipes. All right, we also have feta cheese. The feta cheese is another salty ingredient. So if you might notice, I'm not going to add salt to the stuffing. Again, we can add it later when we go and taste our recipe, but we don't have to add it right now. So into our stuffing for the chicken, we have our garlic, our partially sauteed onions. We're going to add about a cup of this frozen veg. If your kale is still frozen, you could just pop it into a pan really quickly just to warm it up. But I took this out a little bit ago, about an hour or so ago. So I'm going to put about a cup in there. And then we're going to add 1 ounce per serving. So each chicken breast is going to make one big roll, which would be 1 to 2 servings, depending on how much someone's going to eat. So you're going to add 1 ounce per serving of the feta. Another question.
Larissa wants to know, she grows her own kale. Can she use fresh kale?
Oh, yeah. Larissa, great question. So Larissa says that she grows her own kale. And so she wants to use fresh. That's, first of all, fantastic that you grow your own kale. Yes, you can absolutely use a fresh veggie in here. What you want to do is saute it a bit. So just let out some of the water of your fresh veggie, saute it a bit before you add it to the filling. And that way you're not going to bite into your chicken and have like a raw piece of kale, right? Because you want it to cook thoroughly. So if you're going to do that, just saute it on the stovetop, steam it, and then add it to your stuffing. All right, so we have our feta. Again, about 1 ounce per serving. We have our lemon juice. I think that's it. I think that's all we want to add here. And we're not going to add salt, but we can add a little black pepper. And then you're just going to take your spatula and kind of break it all up. You want to break up that feta. If you are dairy-free or if you don't like feta, so if you're not dairy-free, but you don't like feta, a nice swap for this would be goat cheese, because that's going to get a really nice melty texture. And if you are dairy-free, and so you want to omit the cheese entirely, you could actually do a soaked cashew because it adds some texture to the filling, or you could totally omit it, or use a dairy-free option. There's lots of options here, especially if you're shopping, you know, some of our local stores like Whole Foods, Wegmans, Giant, they have phenomenal allergen friendly sections. All right, how are my people that are cooking along? How y'all doing? Anybody have any questions? Perfect. All right. As I'm kind of breaking up my kale, I want to take the opportunity to remind you, a lot of the tips that I'm sharing now are things that I actually do share on social media. So if you're not already connected with me on TikTok or Instagram, you can find me under the handle of The Wellness Kitchenista. And if you go to my website, thewellnesskitchenista.com, you will find links to all the social, my YouTube channel where I have lots of recipes, and even a link to my TV show called Eat Your Way to Wellness, which if you weren't here at the beginning during the intro, which Marie so beautifully gave, that aired on PHL 17 back in 2020, just at the onset of the pandemic. And we just won the Emmy Award for it. So I think it's a really good show. And I hope that you are able to check it out if you haven't seen it already. All right, my stuffing is all done for the chicken. You can see the greens, the onions, the garlic. We have the feta. Now let's get prepped for the chicken. So I have a few chicken breasts off to my side. I'll get those in a second. But first, let's prep. You're either going to use cooking twine or toothpicks, okay, to close up those roulades, that stuffed chicken. And we're going to get out some wax paper. And you know what? While my cutting board is still clean before I do my chicken, I apologize. Let's zest our lemon and let's chop our parsley into the other bowl that I have here for our barley, okay? And I hear if you're cooking along, you probably have your sauce that's simmering. So I'm just gonna lower the heat on that. Lower the heat on both of those. Let me just move my stuffing off to the side before I get anything dirty. So for the warm barley salad, it's just going to be some fresh herbs, lemon juice, olive oil, and some seasoning. So we're gonna get that done now. A microplaner. Also, I have a great option on my Amazon storefront, or a zester, whatever you want. Into a second bowl for our barley salad, we'll zest the lemon. Careful not to get that white pith under the lemon zest, the skin, because that's often quite bitter. So we'll put that in our second bowl. If you were doing this at home and you wanted to put, not dirty another bowl, you could actually put this right over your barley in that pot if you wanted. Once it's done cooking. I just want to make sure that we may not have time for that. So we'll zest that in there. We'll cut it in half. And we'll get that juice in there too. All right. Again, if we talk about immunity, I know that's on the forefront of everyone's mind. Your citrus is a great source of your vitamin C. And then citrus in the morning. So if you start your mornings with some water with citrus, it actually can help perk you up. So you may be able to get away with some less coffee. I know myself, I love coffee all morning long, but I try to start it with some citrus to wake myself up. So that's a full lemon. I love the idea of salads with warm grains. It's just so hearty and flavorful. Any questions?
Donna loves your show.
Donna! Oh, that's so sweet. So I'm happy to hear you say that. Thank you. The show, I thought the show was great. And for those of you who didn't watch it, every episode we went through a different health diagnosis, right? One of my biggest pet peeves is when people use the word healthy, and it's really like these blanketed statements, because health is different for every single person, and it means something different for everyone. And when you say health, it sometimes doesn't mean physical health. It actually means mental health, right? Sometimes we get so stressed out about diet and exercise that we compromise our mental health, and I think that's all part of it. So a little bit of salt, again, about a 1/4 teaspoon with our dressing here at the barley. And we'll do some fresh parsley as well. And what the heck, we'll put fresh parsley in our stuffing for our chicken too. We have enough, right? Fresh parsley will last a long time in a cup with some water. Tent it with a large Ziploc and put it in your fridge. You'll find that it lasts a lot longer than if you just keep it in those silly plastic containers that it comes from. All right, run your rough chop on the parsley. If you see my knife, same rocking motion that I did with the onion and the carrot. We're just gonna rock through that parsley. Kind of a rough chop. I love fresh herbs. So to me, it doesn't have to be too small. And again, you'll measure this one with your heart, just like you did with the garlic. No measurement here. A little bit in the bowl for your barley salad, a little bit in the stuffing for the chicken. Okay. And then in the barley salad, we're going to add olive oil again, extra virgin this time, right? Because we're going to eat this. It's just going to get a little bit of kiss of heat from the barley. So extra virgin olive oil. I would say about a 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on how much you want to add. And now that dressing is done for the barley salad. Done, done, done. Our sauce is done. Our barley is cooking. The only thing we have left to do is the chicken. So you can see how quickly it all came together. So let's go back. We have our stuffing here. We'll go back to the toothpick twine note that I was giving you. I want everyone to catch up. So I'm going to take a minute here, just take a breath. If anyone has any comments or questions, drop them in the chat box before we hop into the chicken. So I want to make sure that everyone is caught up to me. Questions? No? All right, awesome. I want to know what everyone's, is everyone planning any trips for the summer? I mean, I feel like at this point, we're almost at February and March. Is anyone doing anything? Does anyone have anything on their calendar? Something that Bill and I keep talking about. The snow is coming this weekend is making me feel like I have to get somewhere tropical pretty darn soon. All right, so let's move on to the chicken. We have either twine or toothpicks. Yeah, we have a question.
Judy says she's going to Wyoming.
Ooh, Wyoming. Judy, what, no, not to be rude. What's in Wyoming? Why go out there? Are there parks or are there maybe museums? Anybody else?
Donna's renting a condo in Marco Island.
Marco Island. See, Donna, this is what I'm talking about. That's where I need to be. All right, so let's, yeah.
And Teresa is trying to catch up.
Oh, Teresa is trying to catch up. Okay, Teresa, I'm gonna wait 1 second here just so you can catch up with me. And yeah, I need to get somewhere tropical. Marco Island sounds great, Donna. Judy, I still want to know what's in Wyoming. Erin, I'm going to start to cut my twine here for the chicken. So for Teresa and for Brandy, who's cooking with us, we've got the sauce going. We've got the stuffing made. So take a minute to catch up here.
Judy says there's mountains in Wyoming.
Oh, mountains. Judy says there's mountains in Wyoming. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right, so either toothpicks for the chicken or cooking twine. I'm going to use cooking twine. When you go to the store, this is actually, a Giant supermarket. I bought this. This is actually in the aisle with all of the tools and utensils. You have like those tinfoil pans and all that good stuff. And I'm cutting 4 pieces, 2 pieces per chicken breast. And I'm making 2 chicken breasts. You could actually translate, you'll have enough sauce if you wanted to do a full 4 chicken breasts, which makes 4 to 8 servings, right? Because you can cut the chicken breast in half. You could do that too. And I would say there are going to be, I'm doing this just a little bit slower so we can all catch up. They're going to be about, I don't know, a 1.5 feet long or so. I always end up cutting too much, but I don't like it to be too short. All right, so let's move this off to the side. The other thing we'll need for our chicken is wax paper or parchment paper. Let's talk about this for a second while we have some people catching up. Wax or parchment, what is the difference? Right? Parchment paper is great for cooking and baking. Wax paper is not. Wax paper will actually melt and you'll be eating wax. So you're going to use wax paper for things, the application that we're doing now, we're going to pound out our chicken between wax paper. You could also do it with parchment, but if you're stocking both, you don't want to cook with the wax paper. Another question.
Can you verify for Teresa what's in the sauce and dressing to be sure she added everything?
Yes. Okay. So Teresa wants me to just go through the ingredients for the sauce and the dressing. So I will do that, and then I'll move on to the chicken. So in the sauce, we started by sauteing onions and garlic. We added some salt and pepper, dried spices, basil, parsley, and oregano, carrots, and tomatoes with a little bit of water that we got from those jars. We will add the olives and the capers if you choose to do so. In the barley, that's just barley and water. And in the stuffing, we have our frozen kale, our feta cheese, onions and garlic, fresh parsley, and I did not add salt, but you could, and black pepper. Perfect. All right, so let's move on to our chicken. I'm going to take some wax paper. I'm going to make 3 to 4. You'll really need 3, but I'm going to do a 4th piece of wax paper just in case I break one open, which I tend to do when I'm flattening out chicken. And I'll move my knife off to the sink. So that way the secret ingredient in all of this isn't me. And we'll grab our chicken. So when you buy chicken at the store, we're using only 2 chicken breasts for this class today, but I had 4 in the package. So I actually opened up the package. I put my chicken in a roasting pan, and I'm going to throw that chicken right in the oven, the other 2 breasts, with the carrots that came out of my bag. And that way I have it for the week. I could throw it in a soup. I could put it over salad. I could put it with some sesame oil and soy sauce, and I have a whole nother meal, and it's kind of thankless. I'm kind of the person that thinks a full Sunday dedicated to meal prep is outrageous. It's bananas. I don't know how people do that. But if you make a mess once and cook at least twice, then you'll have the leftovers to cook, right? You'll have to eat. You'll have the leftovers to eat. So we're gonna pound our chicken. Between mashing our feta, mashing our garlic, and pounding our chicken, we're getting all of our frustration out today. So I'm gonna keep one hand totally clean and one hand chickeny. So that way, if I have to grab anything else, one hand remains clean. All right, so we'll take 1 chicken breast, and I'll move this so you can see what I'm doing. And that goes on my wax paper, okay? Grab a knife. I'll do this slow. We're gonna butterfly the chicken. You could 2 ways you could do this. You could take your knife and you could put your hand flat on top and cut straight through and just open it up. Or you can go in the middle and cut 1 to the left, 1 to the right. Either way, it doesn't matter because we're gonna pound it flat and it's all gonna be very even. So I'm gonna go 1 to the left, 1 to the right. So I'm taking my knife, my hand is flat on my chicken, right? Because I don't want my fingers in the way. And I'm just gonna cut into the chicken. There is, by the way, on this chicken, a little bit of fat that you can or can't trim off, whatever you want. And there's also the tender, right? When you have chicken tenders, there's actually a tender that's on that breast. I'm leaving it on. I'm not going to take off the tender. I will remove this little bit of fat. And for me personally, the type of chicken that I like to get, I do like to get a pasture raised chicken if I can, and actually get it from a local farm. We're in Pennsylvania, and I actually find that our local farms are fantastic, and they tend to be a little bit more cost effective than going to the grocery store, believe it or not. So we're just gonna open this up. It does not have to be pretty, but you can see I basically doubled that in terms of width for the chicken. If you are vegan and you wanna make this recipe, you could certainly use eggplant. So you're not gonna butterfly it, you're just gonna scoop out the center for the eggplant, put the stuffing in, and pop it in the oven and bake it. So we'll put our second piece of wax paper on top. And then with my clean hand, I'm gonna grab either rolling pin or pan, whatever you prefer. I'm gonna grab a rolling pin. And we're just gonna bang the chicken, literally bang it with our rolling pin to flatten it thin. We're gonna end up getting it to about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Just like that. The thinner you bang it, the thinner you, bang it. I don't know, that's the only way to say it. The thinner you make it, the quicker it will cook, but more risk of tearing open that chicken and breaking it into multiple pieces. So just be careful. We'll try to just bang it. Bear with me, I know it's loud. I'm gonna go a little bit more here. Okay. All right, so when we peel off our wax paper, check it out. This is perfect now. It's about, I would say, 1/4 inch in thickness, and it's really doubled again in size. So we're gonna do the other chicken breast now as well, because we wanna put the stuffing into both of them. So let me move this off to the side. And I'll grab my other 2 pieces of wax paper and my other chicken breast. And again, my knife. So again, we can put our hand flat on our chicken and cut straight through to open this up, or we can go side to side. The last time I did side to side, this time I'll do straight through. We have a question.
What's the benefit to flattening the chicken versus leaving it alone?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what's the benefit to flattening the chicken versus leaving it alone? we are going to stuff this chicken. So we're actually going to put the stuffing we made into the chicken and roll it up. We couldn't possibly roll a chicken breast like this because it's just too thick and there's just not enough of it to stuff. Alternatively, if you wanted just to open it up, so I've already put it through and leave it just like this, just kind of like in half without flattening it, and put the stuffing right here and then tie it up, you could do it. But remember, your chicken's very thick. So what may end up happening is you're going to burn the outside without fully cooking the center. So that's the benefit of getting a bit thinner. You could do it, especially if you plan to roast it. If you could roast this chicken with the lid on, and so it kind of steams through, it's just going to take longer. So either way, that was a fantastic question. You could do it. You do not have to flatten the chicken. That was Nancy. Great question, Nancy. All right, but we are going to flatten it just for the purpose of this recipe. So we'll flatten again. Bear with me. I know it's loud. That should do it. This is probably not perfect. No, actually pretty good. All right, then everything goes in the sink. Everything that touched this raw chicken has to go in the sink. And we're actually even going to Lysol, once we stuff the chicken and get it into the pan, we're gonna Lysol this whole area before we plate up our cooked food. We're just about done here. This is the last step before we sear our chicken, and then we eat it. So this is with my clean hand still. What I'm gonna do is take the twine, which is under my wax paper, and remember 2 pieces per chicken breast. So we'll pick up the chicken breast, 1 piece of twine goes down. If you were doing, I'll do 1 with the twine, 1 with the toothpicks, just in case that's what you have. Okay, and another piece of twine. And we'll put my chicken breast right on top of it. With my clean hand, I'm gonna grab a spoon. And we'll put about, I'm doing 2, you could do 3 or 4, like I said. So if I'm doing 2, that means about half of the stuffing goes into the chicken breast. And you're basically just gonna spread it out evenly over the top. This is a great way too, if your spouse or your kids don't eat veggies, put it into, roll it up. It looks beautiful. It's impressive for if you ever have, whenever we have guests over our houses again, it's impressive, but also might get your kids or your spouse to eat more veggies because it kind of looks cool and neat. So you can see now, I forget who asked that question about pounding the chicken, but you can see now how easily this will roll because we pounded the chicken. So my twine is going this way, right? So that means I'm gonna roll it in the same direction of my twine so I can tie it up when I'm done. So we're basically, I'm gonna get my second hand dirty. We're gonna roll the chicken up. And then we'll tie it with twine. That's it. I always end up having too much twine, but that's okay, because you don't wanna not have enough. And tie it up. Another question, yeah.
Donna's asking, will the recipe be available?
Yes, Donna, the recipe, good question. Will the recipe be available? Mainline today, Marie and Carol, who are on this call, they will have that on Mainline today. I will also be putting that at the wellnesskitchenista.com/recipes with all of my other recipes. And I will be posting it on Instagram. So I'll take a really beautiful finished photo and I'll put that on Instagram as well. So you're gonna have a lot of places to get this recipe. Yep, all right. Just trim some of that extra. And this is done. Another question.
Will the recipes include steps?
Oh yeah, the recipe always includes steps. So you're not only gonna get all the ingredients, but you will definitely 100% get the steps. And the steps are even in this chat here on Zoom. So if you wanted to copy and paste them, you could do it. But don't feel like you have to because we'll have it available for you. All right, so 1 is done. Let me show you how to do this other one. So we're gonna do this other chicken with the toothpicks. And then we'll get these into our pans. So the other half of the stuffing. The only thing that, is hard with the toothpicks and why I prefer the cooking twine is inevitably I always forget one in there. And so when you're cutting with your knife, you might go right into a toothpick, but if you, that's all you have, that's all you have. All right, so same thing, we'll roll this up. Any direction is fine for this. And then you're gonna take your toothpicks and kind of go into your chicken and back out. So we'll go in and back out, almost like you're sewing. A few of them, and you always wanna remember how much you put in. And I think sometimes right through the center just to get all those pieces is good. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands really quickly. Yes. Okay, Nancy asked, is cooking twine the same as twine? Yes, it is. And you're gonna find that at the grocery store. You will find that in the aisle with, you know, your veggie peeler, the tinfoil pans, all of those tools, the measuring cups, that kind of thing. All right, and remember, we have 2 more chicken breasts, so I'm gonna put those in the oven a little bit later so I can just eat them throughout the week, throw them into anything. I have a pan. This is a nonstick pan it's a 10-inch that I'm gonna put both of these chicken breasts into, and I have a lid. And remember, we're gonna cook these. We're gonna sear these chicken breasts that we're using, not extra virgin olive oil, just olive oil. About a tablespoon. We're gonna turn the heat on. And we're gonna drop those chicken breasts in. This is the home stretch now. We have about 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes until that chicken cooks through, and then we're ready to eat. All right, so my pan is on. Remember, when it's hot, I can use less oil because that oil disperses. I'm gonna check on my barley. My barley still has a little bit of water, so that's doing fine. I added a good amount of water. I can always drain it, but barley, like I said, man, it takes a lot of water, and you wanna make sure it's nice and soft when you go to eat it. The chicken, I forgot, I should have seasoned either side of the chicken. I totally forgot about that. Let me season that now. When it was flat, if you are watching at home and you make this recipe, sorry about that. I forgot to season with salt and pepper. So we are gonna season chicken now with some salt and some pepper. Okay, we'll do the other one too. And I love to use my wax paper because if you notice, I can move my chicken around and it kind of gives me more space to spread out here and cook. And we'll put the chicken into our pot, season side down, and then we'll season the other side. And we should hear a really yummy sear as soon as we put this down. Let me grab some tongs since my hands are clean. We're gonna sear all sides of the chicken. And you might think to yourself, why are we doing this, right? Why aren't we just, oh yeah, do you hear this? Maybe you didn't hear this here, we'll get a bit hotter. Why are we searing the chicken? Why aren't we just cooking the chicken? The reason is when we sear that meat, the same reason that you might sear a steak or a roast before you put that in the oven, you're gonna lock in the juices. And you're gonna get another whole depth of flavor because you're getting that nice Maillard reaction. It's that browning of the protein. So you hear the sizzling now. I'm gonna grab the other one and put it face down as well. We'll throw this out. And then we're gonna season the other side. And then we'll wipe everything up. All right, pretty easy so far. While this chicken cooks, I would love to open up for any other questions or any about anything, not just the recipe, but does anyone have any questions? Is anyone have any goals for 2022 that, or, you know, did you recently see something at the grocery store that kind of confused you and you kind of want some clarity on it? I'm here for all of that while this chicken is browning. And while I start to clean up my little work surface here. Here's a tip if no one has questions. Underneath my cutting board, I put a kitchen towel. It was damp. Let me lower this. It was damp. So if you are somebody that has a cutting board that kind of slides all over your work surface, when you put a damp towel underneath, that's just a quick tip. It's almost like an instant grip. So you're not going to get that sliding and less risk of cutting yourself when you're chopping. Yeah, we have a question. Yeah.
We're thinking to use stick-free pans.
Oh,
So can she use stainless steel?
Yes. So that's a great question, Larissa. Larissa asked, if you don't have a non-stick pan, can you use a stainless steel pan? Great question. Stainless steel, you have to become comfortable with cooking with stainless steel. And if you add enough fat, so I would say 1 to 2 tablespoons, and let it get very hot. That's the trick with stainless steel. When it's hot, 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 you're gonna get a beautiful sear. And then your protein, when it's ready to come up from that stainless steel, it will easily release. If you're tugging at your steaks or pork chops or your chicken, and it's not coming up from the bottom of the pan, that means that it's not yet seared enough and it's not ready to come up. So you have to give it some more time. That was a great question. Another question.
Sean wants to know what kind of salt is best to use.
Sean, great question. Sean asked what type of salt is best to use. So I think every chef or every cook will have their own answer to this. I do prefer either a sea salt, like a Celtic sea salt, or a pink Himalayan salt. And the reason for that is, now remember, all your salts, just because people are using pink salt, all your salts have sodium. Not one salt is going to have less sodium. So a lot of people think, oh, I have heart disease, I can just use the pink salt. Everyone says it's healthier. No, no, no. They all have about the same amount of sodium. That's a great question. But you're going to get, the salt is sourced differently. So the pink Himalayan is from the Himalayan mountain, right? The Himalayas over in Pakistan, right? Himalayas in Pakistan? No, I think so. Don't forget that. But over in Pakistan, right? They're mining that salt. Celtic sea salt or sea salt is from the Celtic Sea, right? I do prefer those. So you can see, I'm going to flip the chicken just to get a sear. Look how beautiful and crusty that chicken is. Can you all see that? I'm going to flip it to the other side just to get a sear. Look at that. Is that not gorgeous? All right. So anyway, Sean, to answer your question, I do like a pink Himalayan salt or a sea salt, a Celtic sea salt, or I know that there's even a Mediterranean sea salt. And that is because of the plastic content in some other sea salts because of the pollution. So I do try to choose the sea salt wisely. Yeah. Another question.
Carol wants to know, the chicken breasts look large. How do you know what size to get?
The chicken breasts look large. So Carol asked, the chicken breasts look large. How do I know what size to get in terms of chicken breasts? These chicken breasts were about 4 to 5 ounces per breast. And in terms of how large to get them, how hungry are you, right? How hungry are you? How long do you have to cook? This recipe, remember, cooking can be modified, but these were about, I would say 4 to 5 ounces, and I flattened them so they were quite big and they were thinner, so they're going to cook. If you wanted to do smaller ones, just make less filling. You know, half the recipe is for the filling. It's about 7 o'clock, so we have like 10 to 15 minutes left. We're going to finish this up just so you guys are all with me. Yeah, another question. Yeah. So by the way, I am flipping the chicken to get the other sides as well as I answer Brandy's question. She says she doesn't have olive oil. And I know, Brandy, you are cooking with me. So go ahead and use your extra virgin. But remember, it likely will burn at high temperatures. So for searing, it's not best. If you do at home have butter or avocado oil, those are going to be higher smoke point options and they're not going to burn. So it's all about the smoke point here when cooking with oils. My favorites are olive oil to cook with, avocado oil to cook with, because of the smoke point, meaning that it's going to be able to tolerate without burning higher temperatures, or even coconut oil up to 350 degrees. So that's great for baking. And what happens when it burns is, of course, your recipes are going to taste pretty gross, but you're also going to get that byproduct called free radicals because you're getting a chemistry change with the oil. And that free radicals is why we eat antioxidants, okay? Because we get a lot of these free radicals in our diet. So we're searing the chicken on all sides, and I'm able to do that because of the higher smoke point of the olive oil. And just by searing this, the chicken is steaming through. My feta is starting to melt. And I'm going to actually check on my sauce now just to see what that's looking like. And as soon as I flip this over to the chicken over to the last side, I'm putting these tongs in the sink. And then I'm going to use clean new tongs to pull the chicken out of the pan. So I'm going to flip it over to the last and final side. It's looking really, really good. Yeah, grapeseed oil is just not an oil I often cook with, but it does have a higher smoke point. And so when you think about oils, you have to also think about the types of fats, right? Remember, every type of fat has a different breakdown. You have your unsaturated fats, your saturated fats, right? Those should be terms that are quite familiar to most of you. I like to choose oils that have an added benefit. For example, we talked about olive oil having that cardioprotective, that positive positive effect on cardiovascular health or heart health. So that's why I choose olive oil. And you also want to think about the fat content. So maybe one that has less saturated fat, less omega-3, or excuse me, omega-6 fat, more omega-3 fat, right? So it becomes more complicated in terms of fat. I think that's probably a class all in and of itself. But grapeseed would be a good smoke point option. Absolutely. Yep. Let's check on the sauce if you're cooking along with me. Ooh, it's simmering. It's looking fantastic. I'm actually going to shut off the heat now for that. Let's check on the barley. Barley is looking good. I think I overdid it with the water at the beginning of the class. I'm gonna just take one moment here. I'm going to clean up all of this chicken gut stuff, put these tongs in the sink, and I'm gonna pop some chicken broth or water into the pan with my chicken. So now I've seared it. I'm gonna pick up all those little bits at the bottom with the liquid, and it's going to add flavor, but also steam the chicken through. So chicken broth or water into your pan, and then we'll pop the lid on pretty quickly. When you're ready to put the water in, put your lid on quickly because you're gonna get a big puff of steam, okay? So a little bit of water there. And we'll pop the lid on, and now that chicken's gonna finish up. Yes.
Karen wants to know what wine you would suggest with the dish.
Ooh, Karen's speaking my language. She wants to know what kind of wine would I suggest with the dish. I love it. You know what? So a very good friend of mine, her name is Amanda. She was actually in episode 4 of the TV show. She recommended if it grows together, it goes together. So if you're looking for example, you're eating fish and it's something like a salmon or something from the Mediterranean region, you might consider a Mediterranean or Italian wine. In terms of chicken, you know, we're in the Northeast here. So I would say that really it's carte blanche, whatever you like. But I do believe because this is a Mediterranean flair, we're adding the olives, the capers, we had that tomato sauce. I actually think a nice Mediterranean, Italian, Spanish red wine would go beautifully with this dish, actually. If you wanted to do a white wine, I would not do something that's overly fruity. I would maybe do something a little bit less fruity, less sweet, just because of the nature of the meal. You want to make sure that you're actually tasting that wine with all these really bold flavors that we added. I can tell you that I have a Pinot Noir, which is a fruity red, in my refrigerator chilling because I like my red wine cold, and that's what I will be enjoying with this meal when I eat it when we're all done. So I'm just going to use some Lysol to wipe this all up, because what we're going to do is grab a plate now and we're going to plate up our meal. I'll show you what it looks like when it all comes together. These are all really great questions. I hope you all are learning from this class and you're enjoying it so far. I know I'm having fun. All right. And then we clean up. I think that's the biggest mistake that I see home chefs make is not cleaning up or switching out their utensils after using raw chicken or raw meat of any kind, and you get cross-contamination. So that's the biggest thing that I see, the biggest mistake that I see being made in terms of food safety. So we'll just wipe everything up. Let me grab a dish. I should have grabbed a wine glass so we can have it all kind of all come together for us. Any other questions? If you do want to join, so just while we're kind of getting our dish here and getting ready to finish up our class, I'll remind you to come on over to social media, The Wellness Kitchenista on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Definitely check out the show. You can find that at thewellnesskitchenista.com. And if you want to, you could drop your email address in the chat, or you can go right to thewellnesskitchenista.com and sign up for my mailing list. You will get a monthly recipe, some tips, and of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. It's jessica@thewellnesskitchenista.com. Even if I don't have an answer for you, I might have a resource for you, and I'm always available to those who have questions. So we have our plate, we have our napkin. Any other questions come through?
Between olive oil and extra virgin olive oil again?
Yeah, so the question was, what is the difference between olive oil and extra virgin olive oil? So olive oil and extra virgin olive oil come from the same olive, right? The same olive. But when you take the olive and by the way, when you're buying oil, here's a quick tip for cooking oils. I try to, if I can buy glass, I do. I could not find olive oil in glass. I was only in plastic. I didn't prefer that because, plastic is on those shipping trucks and it gets hot. And every time you heat up plastic, it starts to degrade a bit. So I got it in the metal container. Okay, that's my personal preference. You also want to look for the words cold pressed. So you'll see it right on the label, cold pressed. That's the other thing I look for my oils, whether that's coconut, avocado, olive, it's cold pressed. That literally means they took the olive, they put it in a press, they smushed it, and oil came out. That's what that means, okay? The first time they do that to the olive, you're gonna get extra virgin olive oil. It's gonna be your dark yellow to green color, very bold, nutty flavor. And it has a lower smoke point, meaning that it does not tolerate those high heats, best eaten raw. The second time they put the olive through the press, and the third and the fourth, they'll keep doing it, you're gonna get the olive oil. So you'll get extra virgin, then just olive oil, right? They're gonna keep pressing that olive to get the most oil out of it. That olive oil is gonna have a higher smoke point. So it's really much better to cook with because it's not gonna burn and the structure isn't gonna change as quickly. And that's your olive oil. So same thing, but different applications and different flavors actually. Much more mild, nutty flavor in the olive oil. Another question.
Is cold extracted and cold pressed the same thing?
Cold extracted and cold pressed is the same thing. If you don't see cold extracted or cold pressed, it actually means that probably the manufacturer used a chemical gas to extract the oil from the source. And it's fine, right? It's fine. All of these things are fine. But if we're making these changes or if we're eating it every single day, for example, I use olive oil a lot, I try to buy a higher quality one. And that's how I gauge my ingredients. Our chicken is going. Oh gosh, my nose is still running from those onions. All right, let me put the olive oil away. We have our plate. Let's grab some of our barley. So your barley should be nice and soft and really puffy. I actually put a little bit extra water. That was my mistake. I'm just going to drain a bit out. Okay. Nice and puffy and pillowy. Remember, it's a whole grain, but barley is a very hardy whole grain. So you can see, I'm just going to use a slotted spoon to grab it. It almost looks like puffed rice when it's all cooked. Can you see that? How puffy and hearty that is? And remember that whole grain, you're getting fiber, you're getting great carbohydrate, you're getting all of your vitamins because it's not been refined like a refined grain would be. Let's grab a chicken breast. Your chicken breast, the internal temperature should be 160 degrees. That's how 65 degrees, I apologize. If it's not up to 165, it's not cooked. So I recommend a thermometer always to have in your kitchen to make sure that your meats are cooked properly and safely, right? It doesn't matter if it tastes good. I mean, at minimum, you want it to taste good, but at minimum, it has to be cooked through. So I always will use a thermometer just to double check. You know, the more experience you get in the kitchen, you're gonna know if your chicken's cooked. I think mine is definitely cooked, but still I wanna put my thermometer in there. Yep, we're at about right at 160, 165. So we'll plate that up. I'm gonna use a clean tong, right? A clean set of tongs to grab it out of the pan. And we'll put that here. Beautiful. And then we're gonna put some sauce over it. Put my lid back on my chicken. Move that off to the side. We'll grab our sauce. Now the sauce, I have to add the olives. Oh my goodness gracious. I have to add the olives. We'll put those in there. Again, if you can add the olives and the capers, you cannot. It's totally up to you. And I like those just to get a kiss of heat, mix it around. And then we'll put that right over our chicken. My carrots have softened, my onions have softened, my garlic is cooked completely through. A ladle or a measuring cup just makes this really nice. And I didn't add the red pepper flake. If you're making this at home, when you add your spices, if you wanted to add the red pepper flake at that time, you could add it now as well. Totally up to you. But I have a little bit of the heartburn, so I try not to add as much spiciness to my diet as I can. Another question.
Gina wants to know, does the chicken continue to cook after you move the heat like steak does?
That's a good question. You know, there is always going to be carryover cooking with your
question.
Oh, repeat the question. Sorry about that. See, look, this is why my husband keeps me on point. The question was, is there carryover cooking with chicken just like steak has? Yes. This is hot. This is going to continue to cook as it sits on the plate. But you don't, it's, for chicken breasts for this specifically, like you might want to rest your steak. Not necessary to do that with the chicken breast. You could take it right off and put it on the plate and cut right into it if you wanted to. You don't have to rest it like you might a steak. But yes, as long as it stays hot, it's going to continue to cook. I like to top this whole thing with a little Pecorino Romano. That's a hard sheep's milk cheese. Again, very Mediterranean in its flavor. Lactose, very low in lactose for those who need a low lactose option, who might have a lactose intolerance. And there you have it. Our dish is completely finished, all done. So we are all set. I might actually bite into this as well, show you what the center looks like. As we wrap, any final questions? Marie, I do want to turn it back over to you as well.
Thank you. This is fantastic. It's amazing.
Oh, good. Oh, amazing. I'm going to show you guys what the center looks like. And I think we do have another question. See how gorgeous and beautiful that center looks like? You see the swirls of the green, the feta, the chicken. Super impressive, by the way. You could do this if you wanted to line it all up in a sheet tray and do a whole bunch of chicken breasts smaller, cut them in half for guests or for people that family members. It's a fantastic option, I think. Another question?
Your sauce.
Yeah, my sauce. Oh my gosh, the barley. You guys, look at me. I'm getting too excited. Thank you very much. Look, you're keeping me on track. Yes, the barley dressing. So we're doing a warm barley salad. We're just going to pretend like I didn't just plate that up and I didn't get excited. Sorry, everyone. You'd think in my coffee cup there was wine already. And I promise you there's not. Okay. Barley salad. Let's finish it up. So you could eat your barley plain if you wanted, but the barley salad, see, because it wasn't right in front of me. And I was answering all these wonderful questions. So we have the dressing for the barley. Sorry about that, everybody. We'll take the barley. We're just going to put this in the dressing. Remember, we have the lemon juice, the olive oil, our black pepper, salt, and fresh parsley. So it's just going to get a kiss of the hot barley. It's funny, I looked at the plate and I thought it looked a bit naked as compared to what I had prepped. Another question as I'm mixing up the barley salad.
Larice wants to know, can she use quinoa instead of barley? Which is
Larice, can you use, good question, can you use quinoa instead of barley? Absolutely, you can. The other thing that is really great about this, the lemon juice, the olive oil, the parsley, it is beautiful with rice, and it's also beautiful with pasta. So if you prefer pasta with this dish for your grain instead of the barley, you certainly could do that. So this is a warm barley salad. So I love to do the barley salad too, or a grain salad, because I feel like you could eat it hot, you could eat it room temperature, you could also have it for leftovers the next day. Thanks for keeping me on track, everybody. See, part of growing up in New York and then going to school in Philly, right? I talk fast, but I also talk too much. I get too excited. All right. So there we go. Now that's the finished dish. There we go. Perfect. Maybe add a little bit more cheese. All right, perfect. Now that's the finished dish. Marie, it is all you. Sorry.
No, this really does. I can't wait to make it. I did not make it tonight, but I cannot wait to make it. I think I would be challenged following along and keeping up.
Yeah, well, and I'm so glad that we had this recorded, so you can find the recording, of course, on the Mainline Today website. So
thank you so much. This looks fantastic. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And it's really wonderful. It was really wonderful. And don't forget her wine recommendation, Pinot.
Oh yeah, I think a nice red wine would be great with this. Like I said, I have a Pinot Noir, but really anything that you enjoy, there's not a great science to pairing, right? Anything that you enjoy is going to go beautifully with your meal because you enjoy it. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us, and just fantastic night and so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks very much, all. We have some other FitFest, Healthy You FitFest events coming up. Please check out mainlinetoday.com. Have a great evening and enjoy your meal.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.